Good morning, dear colleagues.
First of all, I would like to start with thanking everybody present here for the interest showed and response. And somebody asked what the time was needed for preparing the conference. Actually, to say 3 years. First of all, we visited not only local producers, also visited Belarus, and my colleagues also visited Russia, and now we are ready for organizing such a meeting. What our target was? All our research and studies carried out led to the idea that nobody could do anything alone. For some parties, this is completely new industry or sphere. For somebody, sphere, they are operating for many years already. Associations have been opened and established, but the most open party was our Belarusian colleagues. We had an opportunity to visit Belarusian National Association and productions located there. But some other parties and some stakeholders have different challenges. First of all, the goal of the conference is to introduce and socially mix with each other, to raise and grow trust among the parties and common cooperation in the future. During preparation for the conference, for the last 6 months, when we were really progressing in the direction of successful conference, it was proposed to establish a body, some framework or some networking where stakeholders could and interested parties could communicate, could address governments of particular countries, and this is illustrated by example of our Belarusian colleagues. Unfortunately, I hardly believe that in Latvia we would progress to such extent. There are different challenges existing, as business persons involved are not capable of all the studies and research carried out as regards our black gold. Almost every lake was studied or researched, and every lake is unique. Therefore, support provided by the government is needed. European funding could be used for that, but these European funds are not channeled by European Commission or European Parliament. These are disseminated by the government. And Latvia has received about 5 billion euros for taking up. Therefore, we should take our share and invest in reanimation of this industry and make it really operable and feasible for growth of our national economy. The next question everybody has faced, for instance, research is carried out, everything is quite feasible. Unfortunately, one of our Chinese colleagues could not come because he didn't notice that his passport was already expired. It was representative from investors, and yesterday when I found out that yuan overtook euro and was top 2 instead of US dollars, so I had quite a forecast when the government was deciding to introduce euro and enter or join European Economic Area, and then I proposed that we should switch over to yuan instead of euro, so as taking into account all the progress made by China and its population. So in post-Soviet area, I consider that, for instance, many different international bodies are supported by local governments. New program of European Union would assist in meliorating these lands where single payment should not be paid for area or single area payments of these lands should be meliorated, cultivated and used. Thus we have come to a situation and we decided that conference would be needed. According to regulations established by the national language law, I should speak up in Latvian, but I prefer to speak in Russian according to that territory and according to my historical background. I prefer to speak in Russian already, but we have three working languages: Latvian, Russian and English. But I hope for better understanding and for mutual trust, any language could be chosen. The audience is quite multilingual and multinational, so producers are presented. Producers of fertilizers have come from 9 countries: Poland, Belarus, Switzerland, Montenegro, Lithuania, Latvia, Russia, Tatarstan, and Jordan. So it seems that we have turned around the globe, or we have encircled the globe. Everybody present has particular timing for one's presentation. I would invite you to follow the timeline. We'll have also 1 hour at the end of our session for question and answering a session. Otherwise, so please stick to the timing, otherwise we'll delay our agenda. In international terms, this conference is also quite essential. We have met with reps of organizing committee in Brussels, organizing Expo 2015. It will happen in Milan, in Italy, and there will be different industries discussed and presented. So, in organization, Food and Agricultural Organization of United Nations is not so welcoming. We are not starring, but for instance, rich countries in Europe, 80 million of 500 millions of population of Europe are living on the edge or on the border of poverty. And we cannot afford throwing food and wasting food away. And wonder of capitalism is expiring because people or consumers have become a really society of consumers. And all commodities and services are searched for around the globe for profiting, and companies are having attitude to people like commodity consumers only. And United Nations consider that have researched that 80 million of people are living like and working as servants or peasants. But that also has been observed in rich and old Europe. There is another tendency, and everybody knows about that. That the countries which are well off and rich people, wish to use not only a product produced and not only including genetically modified organisms. Although Europe is against GMO, but these producers mention that if you are not going to eat food produced in Brazil, including GMO, so please don't. We enter the market, but your non-GMO is more expensive, and how can you compete with us when we produce cheap products? United Nations organizations announced 2014 to be a year of family agriculture. So it has been discussed a lot in Brussels and in different parliamentary meetings, and Mr. Rope and Mr. Barroso and all MPs of European Parliament mentioned that small enterprises and small agricultural establishments should be supported. We have more than 93% of small farms. But the most part of financing and co-financing provided from the European Union are channeled to large farms. And more voices are expressed that future lies and is for small farmers. Mr. Barroso reminds all the time that small farms, small enterprises are new jobs for people. Great attention is paid to new farmers or young farmers and new farmer, what actually this new farm would mean and how this term could be interpreted. So rich people wish to eat healthy food and high quality food for organic food. Be cultivated in organic farming, so Sapropel is inevitable. And people and researchers and scientists present today will discuss these chances. Of course, there are mineral fertilizers, one of the challenges that our population has met. Pricing is more, so pricing is higher, and one should remember that Sapropel has long-term effect, between 3 to 5 years. But mineral fertilizer should be cultivated every year or every season. So I didn't mention all the aspects and factors and benefits of Sapropel, but I've briefly touched upon these challenges and problems. And therefore, I would like to conclude that there is huge potential lying in this industry. And with such conclusive words, I would like to finish my introductory speech, and now I would give floor to Anatoly Sakovich from Poland. He is an owner and manager of company bureau, Office for Consulting Services from Poland. Welcome.
Добрый день.
Hello, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to speak Russian. At least I will try to do my best. The headline of my presentation is Sapropel as an organic fertilizer. I understand that the very headline demonstrates some dubious approach, because Sapropel is not only organic, it contains also mineral elements. But I did it on purpose. Why so? Because when I first brought the first batch of Sapropel to Poland from the third countries, I was faced with some challenges at our customs service, since Sapropel was not on the list of fertilizers. So the hurdle took a day. We managed to overcome it, but in order to certify Sapropel, we needed the first batch, which could be tested, and without the first batch there couldn't be any test administered and no certificates issued. But hence there was the first batch, it was tested, and the analysis proved the value of the organic fertilizer Sapropel. We got the certificate which provided for Sapropel as the organic fertilizer containing all the necessary elements in compliance with what is supposed to be an organic fertilizer to be used in agriculture. And we also had to bear in mind that for the consumer, for the farmer, it doesn't really matter what the percentage of this or that substance is in the matter. But whether it's 8% or 23%, it is a substantial difference. Now, what is Sapropel? The absolute majority wouldn't have any doubts as to when asked to give the definition of what Sapropel was. But Sapropel has very different names in different languages, and while addressing the audience at one international conference, having uttered the word Sapropel, I realized that the audience couldn't understand me. Because the very moment I uttered the word, a professor from Omsk, Russia, immediately launched a discussion with a professor from Poland, because Sapropel was not a popular name. In Russia, they used to call it Gitya. And that's why it's important to come to terms as to what it is. But I'm going to dwell on that at the end of my presentation. Anyway, I received that first batch of Sapropel from the third countries, and I received all the necessary documentation testifying to the fact that it was an organic fertilizer, and that the value-added tax it is to comply with was 8%, and now the name of Sapropel is introduced and entered into the list of those goods which are considered by the customs service. Now, a short story of how I brought Sapropel to the Polish market. I used to bring it from Belarus, and my cooperation with the colleagues from Belarus, mostly from the Belarusian Academy of Sciences, who are presented here in the persons of Mr. Bambalovs and Mr. Sokolov, both professors, it gave me a lot, because scientifically I really improved my knowledge, and I had an opportunity to see in practice how Sapropel was extracted, prospected, and used. And the results were quite successful. When I addressed the Polish Institute for Horticulture, nobody could remember such a word, Sapropel. That is why I keep returning to the name of the substance, Sapropel. Anyway, we prospect Sapropel not using pumps. We just cut off the first layer of peat, and then we dig out Sapropel from 2 to 2.5 and 3 meters of Sapropel layer, which is absolutely different at the surface and deeper inside. But when we mix both the layers, when we mix the substance, it is in full compliance with all the requirements provided for by the statute on fertilizers and how to use them. As I have already mentioned, I received all the necessary certificates, including the certificate endorsing it as a fertilizer, and we received permission to use Sapropel as fertilizer for the eco-agriculture. It is extremely important, and I will dwell on it specifically. When I showed my potential collaborators and clients Sapropel in its pure form, as I used to brought them in big bags, I was told it was just mud you dug out somewhere not far from your own fence. So that served as a prompt for me. I realized that I had to change the exterior, to change the way it looks. So I again consulted my Belarusian colleagues, and in collaborative efforts we ended up producing granulated Sapropel. And here you see the samples in smaller bags and in a 5-liter bag and 30-liter bag. I haven't taken it along, but we do have such containers, and we produce Sapropel, granulated Sapropel, packed in 3 volume bags. That's how we deliver Sapropel in big bags. I have mentioned that, so please let's move forward. Anyway, we have participated in different exhibitions where we mixed with our potential clients. We established communication channels, so to say. This is one of the first exhibitions we participated in, and you don't see the name of my company, but you see the poster where Sapropel is presented as a novelty. That was the very first time we introduced Sapropel to the general public. That is another exhibition which we organized in one of the largest exhibitions in Poland called Gardenia, and I had there we had a stand together with the Belarusian Academy of Sciences. We also held a seminar where professors from the Belarusian Academy as well as Polish scientists made presentations. That picture depicts another exhibition also devoted to horticulture activities. So where do we use Sapropel and who do we offer it to? We offer our product mostly to those who use it as a fertilizer, to flower growers, horticulture specialists, green grass producers. I'm not going to dwell on it in detail because others will share their most interesting facts with you. We also cater to the needs of golf. So, and golf clubs are also in great need of our product. And Gulfists understand what the value of Sapropel is. And when I started explaining to them that Sapropel was a rather expensive product, somebody who wanted to make a lawn in front of their house objected to that, saying that you were not right, that it wouldn't be too expensive for me to create an ecologically clean lawn for my children. I was really taken aback. But at the same time, I realized that there were people around, maybe few, who would prefer ecologically clean lawns, apart from ecologically clean products. Mr. Rubiks, we have known each other for a long time, and we are really happy that Sapropel has been introduced into the list of those fertilizers to be used for the production of ecologically clean products. And I would like to add that at the latest session of the Eco Commission of the European Union, which took place last week, all things we used to discuss with you and our Lithuanian colleagues concerning the content of heavy metals. So that document was adopted, and they also decided to include Sapropel into the official list. In accordance with the law, we in Poland have got loads of different fertilizing products which can be applied for the production of ecologically clean agricultural products. But now we can expect one unifying EU document on the fertilizers, where the usage of Sapropel will be provided for. So over the last few years, we managed to achieve quite a lot. In a month or a month and a half, Mr. Barroso is to sign the document, which in its second chapter contains Sapropel as the fertilizer of choice. That is why now I would like to get back to my first phrase I started my presentation with, that Sapropel is an important word as such. And I would also like to say that we produce Sapropel as a fertilizer mostly. We pack it in 5-liter bags and place it on trays of 100, so that to transport 100 liters of Sapropel. We also pack it in 30-liter bags, the same Sapropel, only granulated. In big bags, we pack non-granulated Sapropel, which is to be scattered around with the help of a special device, and the practice is similar to that of scattering manure. This is just an example of how we explain to our prospective clients what they can do making use of Sapropel. So how to do the greening, how to add up Sapropel to the remaining sand, how to take some grass seeds and scatter all the mixture around your house. And if you water it generously, after 7 days you will end up having a nice lawn. Anyway, after 30 days you will be even able to use a mower. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you to you, and thanks for good news that Europe will take care of that. I'm sorry I didn't introduce my colleagues. Udo Persis, my assistant, as regards agricultural matters, who is working here in Latvia, and Antons Klinjans, assistant, as regards agricultural issues and matters in Brussels. These are experts who know much more better than myself. And third, important announcement is that all course of our conference is broadcasted online in internet, and so this is publicly available immediately. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Nikolai Bambalov Nikolaevich, academician of National Academy of Science of Belarus, professor, doctor of agricultural sciences, head of laboratory of biological geochemistry, landscaping at the Institute of Natural Sciences from Belarus. Please, I would kindly ask you to follow the timing. Before I would like to start my main presentation, I would like to thank organizers of this conference for my invitation, of our team for an opportunity to communicate with a number of our colleagues in business and in sciences. And the most important is another gratitude for receiving visas so immediately. Thank you very much for our chance to come. Of course, this is a unique chance to exchange our information and our opinions and listen to other stakeholders to see achievements in different countries. So I mentioned to the technical expert and assistant that my presentation was not yet open. I know. The next slide. The first report by Mr. Salkovich was really full of practical information, whereas we drafted two presentations. The first scientific report, there is much information, theoretical information, but we wished that many business persons are present today. First of all, we would like to show how complex this system, this structure is of Sapropel, and to what sorts or kinds of our varieties of Sapropel fit to which industry. The second report by Dr. Sokolov would be built on our personal or our team and corporate experiments in different climate zones and what results we have achieved. So the second report would go for practice more. So this is a first drawing, first figure, and you see sources and paths of matter delivery to lakes. So the matters generated inside a water body, both organic and mineral, and substances generated or delivered by wind or underground waters or rivers going and flowing into such lake. And the third group is completely chemical processes taking place in the water of that water body. You see these three types of substances or matters. So substances of autochtonic origin inside a water body, autogenic and terrigenic originated matters. And here are two subcategories or subgroups of completely terrigenic origin. Those are microorganisms, algae, fish, plankton and macrophytes, plants growing near the coast and with the roots inside the soil or some water roots. So these are terrigenic originated substances. Autochtonic substances, they can be also clastic, for instance, clay minerals or different minerals of not biogenic origin, and all that is mixed up in water with original or raw substance for sapropel to be generated inside a water body. Sapropel is a bottom sedimentation species, and as any other soil or substance of sedimentation. And now the first is a stage of седиментогенеза, followed by the second stage, which is a diagnosis, transformation of the material or a substance into sapropel itself. Diagenesis consists of two stages. The first is oxidation stage, when the top layer of sapropel sediment, consisting of 20 to 30 millimeters, called Pelogen, where microorganisms and different worms, etc., are existing. They have sufficient amount or quantity of oxygen available, so there this oxidation takes place. Bottom layer of 10 centimeters, when oxygen is less and less, reaching the bottom layers, and really bottom layer has no oxygen, where Pelagian zone or area finishes, where aerial processes take place. And the next processes are really complex, even on the stage of sedimentogenesis in water layer at or under aerial conditions. Biotic processes take place, which is intensive existence of water organisms. So these microorganisms absorb different matters from the water body, and assimilated substances turn into autochronic substances under biotic processes. So photosynthesis takes place, and production of biomass also takes place there. Around the surface of this microorganism's body, these substances are absorbed. So there are large particles sedimenting quite fast, whereas small particles and tiny particles sedimenting quite slowly. There's some microorganisms already dead in the water when reaching the bottom, and in some cases up to 90% of source organic matter destructs before it reaches the bottom. Not only biogenic but also abiotic processes take place in that layer, like delivery of different matters or substances by water flows, delivery of substances and matters by wind, coastal abrasion or erosion takes place as well, and homogenic genesis or generation of minerals take place, with the central part being sedimented. This is really the most complex part of this cycle of processes. The next stage is followed by diagenesis and is processed by microorganisms with physical and chemical links taking place and existing in sapropel. If speed of accumulation of sapropel is 0.1 to 2.5 millimeters per year, this is huge amount or huge number of years for a wide layer of sapropel being accumulated. And these different forms of living organisms exist and occur in the sapropel in the central part. So a bottom layer of sapropel reaches these aerobic conditions and when the conservation takes place, whereas the upper layer comes up more. So we have in Belarus some fields of sapropel with layer being about 30 centimeters, but there are different fields of sapropel where the layer or width of layer doesn't change in the course of years. In some cases, oxygen-containing layer is coming up and up. This is really peculiar phenomena when a border between Pelagen and conservation area is moving upwards all the time. Therefore, conservation area is constantly increasing in width and in space. So I'll switch over and pass several physical and chemical processes. So pelagen circulation is transferred to biologic processes taking place, like in geochemical mineral generation and transfer of substance from biogenic circulation to geologic circulation. Another next stage of diagenesis for recovery stage, conservation area under anaerobic conditions. Biological processes are slowly graduating and upcoming in several small areas or spaces, sites in the complete layer or entire layer of sapropel. So biogenic processes in conservation zone take place, are not extinguished, but are arising in some places. Abiogenic processes are much more progressive in conservation area of the field. Secondary transformation of minerals and organic matter. Sapropel layer or sapropel field loses a lot of water due to multi-annual loss of humidity, and secondary transformation of minerals take place which are underlying this layer of sapropel. Sapropel is constantly changing in some places, and in some cases it takes some time, but there is no phenomenon that sapropel would be constant. It is constantly ongoing process of transformation, but other properties of sapropel are changing in a pelagen stage.
So, what does impact and influence the quality of sapropel? It is first and foremost the chemical content of the water, since all living organisms absorb all nutrients from the water. If the water is rich in nutrients, one type of sapropel is formed, and if it is not too rich, then it's a different kind of sapropel. The geological content of those geological elements due to corrosion also contribute to the type of sapropel. And the shape of the basin and the depth of it is also of utmost importance. If the basin is small enough, there couldn't be waves, so the water's layers mix very slowly, and it means that in the upper layers there is very little oxygen, and if there is little oxygen, disintegration of organic matter is very, very slow. Hence, in such small lakes, rich in biological matter sapropel is formed. But if the basin is big, you have lots of such lakes. The waves are considerable enough, and the mixing of layers in the basin is very intense. So all the organic matter is imbued with oxygen and disintegrates intensively. And in such lakes, which Belarus is rich in, there are more guminic substances, and the quality of sapropel is totally different. Due to oxidation processes, guminic acids, first and foremost, and other guminic acid containing matters get formed. So if you need some sapropel, you need to make inquiries as to which lake sapropel you have to acquire. Another thing, the flowage of the basin. So there are lakes with absolutely still waters, and those into which several rivers flow, and while rivers flow, they accumulate lots of oxygen and it waters. And here we again get back to the oxygen regime of a basin. So in basins where the waters flow, have sapropels with less hydrolyzed matter, more humic acid containing sapropels. The role of climate is also of utmost importance. We live in moderate climatic zone, and we don't feel the drastic changes. But if we take the scale of climatic changes from the Baltic to the Black Sea, we would see that the changes are really very strong. So here you see the content of humic acid in still lakes, in lakes with flowing waters. This transparency is devoted to the role of climate, which is manifested through the amount of precipitation to the amount of evaporation. And this index is to be about 1. In northern Belarus, it's more than 1, and in the southern part, it is less than 1. What does it mean? It means that evaporation is more intense than precipitation, but the lake does not. Well, the lake is still there because there is an influx of under currents different springs containing a lot of salts which do not evaporate, and they stay in the lake. And that is how saline sapropel is formed, and salinated sapropel is not good for production of fertilizers. So I would like to address our businessmen. If you want to buy sapropel, you have to pay attention to what climatic zone you are planning to buy your raw sapropel, so that you don't end up having salinated sapropel. It's very important. Now, the best sapropel are formed in moderate climatic zones in the Baltics, Russia, Belarus. And if you go further south to the steppe zone, you are more likely to encounter salinated lakes and salinated sapropels. The last thing I would like to draw your attention to is anthropogenic pollution. This is one of the most important issues to be reckoned with. What pollutes the environment? Heavy industry, electro power stations. That is why rich European countries do not welcome sapropel, because their industrial revolution, which occurred some 200 years before ours, all energy used to be based on coal, and they are still using coal for their power stations. And in those days, the exhaust from the chimneys was not purified, and colloid coal particles would end up on the soil and on the bottoms of the lakes. And these small particles contain heavy metals and products of not full combustion, which are pronounced carcinogenic, which have pronounced carcinogenic properties. And these are extremely detrimental, harmful substances for human and animal health. And they end up in the sapropel in developed countries. So sapropel is to be prospected only from ecologically pure areas, which Southern Europe can boast of, because there are still ecologically clean lakes with clean sapropel. Of course, if a lake is situated close to a major urban area or a thoroughfare or a railway, it will have pollutions, but to a lesser extent. While choosing a lake, you need to be sure your lake is quite far away from the agricultural fields, because the agricultural fields are processed with pesticides, and these pesticides may end up with water flows in lakes. Another polluting factor is hunting, because over the decades, the areas where hunting would take place would end up polluting the lakes with lead from the bullets, and they do accumulate over decades, please believe me, and it becomes a source of pollution of lake waters. While we were still part of the Soviet Union, a Belarusian scientist worked out industrial genetic classification for sapropel, we distinguish between two groups. Groups with low ash content sapropel and group of high ash content sapropel, which in their turns fall into other groups. These types are subdivided into classes. And if we take a class of organic sapropel, the ash content is up to 30%. It should be less than 30%, with 70% falling on organic matters. But these organic matters are very different in their composition, and we singled out classes proceeding from the ratio of humic acids to other substances. And the more humic acid there is in our sapropel, the better the quality. If the proportion is from 1 to 3, it is still good sapropel, and all these sapropels are good for making fertilizers, but the most valuable are good as healing muds. But if humic matters are very scanty, we would recommend such sapropel for boring mortars and as binding substance. And by the way, you can make a very good glue from sapropel poor in humic matters. It is well hydrolyzed, and it has loads of molecules with well-developed peripheral part. So, silicious sapropel is mostly used for producing fertilizers. As you see, the proportion of humic matters is to be no less than 30. As far as silicious sapropels are concerned, we need to consider whether silica is soluble. So silicious soil should be water soluble, and it is good for producing growth stimulators, etc. So we distinguish between three types of sapropel here, including carbonated sapropel. I'm going to finish. Limey materials. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that there are lots of carbonated matters, and you wouldn't want to offer such kind of sapropel to Arab countries because they won't benefit from such sapropel, and you can even discredit the very idea of sapropel usage if unwittingly you offer the Arab countries such kind of sapropel. Apart from our presentation, we also have brought the full text of our report, where we dwell in details on every most important issue. And I would also like to say that last year we prepared an analytical report on the Belarusian experience of sapropel use. We prepared that report as long as 30 pages, was commissioned by the Lithuanian side, and we communicated all that information to them. And we do hope that this report will also contribute to our strive to make Sapropel the fertilizer of choice in the whole of the Soviet Union. I'm sorry for abusing the timing. I thought it was interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was really quite analytical and scientific report. Later on, I would like to mention that all the materials provided for the conference, including a person for a shorter or a more longer report, be welcome to find those materials online after our conference. As Pushkin has mentioned, so your work will not deplete and disintegrate once it will be published and available. I'm sorry we are late for some 10 minutes, therefore I would like to give the floor to Michael Ostrowski, manager of European Agrophysical Institute from Switzerland. Welcome. First of all, to show respect to the country which invited us to this conference, and secondly, I would like to say in Latvian, dear ladies and gentlemen, we represent European Agrophysical Institute. It's a non-commercial scientific organization. Target and goal of agrophysics is propagation, popularization of interdisciplinary sciences with quite new and interesting, exciting innovations like biochemistry, agronomics. And the goal of our institute is introduction and implementation of the latest achievements and latest creations and popularization of agrophysics, pilot experimenting of the latest technologies and products, which of course today is devoted and is produced on the basis of Sapropel. And topic of the conference itself, Sapropel as such, Sapropel is a strategic resource. And if many producers know and are present, this is a new technology for processing Sapropel as in deep technologies. So oil can be burnt or processed only by burning a banknote, but Sapropel should be considered also as opportunity of deep processing, direction of deep processing and application of deep processed Sapropel and products. At European Agrophysical Institute, editing office of European Agrophysical Journal is established, where we anticipate to publish the latest articles, technologies in applying agrophysical technologies. European Agrophysical Institute was established this year, but its team of different clinical studies and researches for more than 25 years is based on German-Russian Institute of Biomagnetic Cybernetics and Nanotechnologies. We wish to see which deep processing technologies are used, although Sapropel is an accompanying natural resource alongside start with peat, but in the territory of Russia and Europe, which resources were available and which could be applied for some business research. Strategy of application of latest trends of natural resources such as sapropel and peat. First of all, I would like to mention that on the basis or by means of deep processing manufacture, we deliver concentrated suspension of the mix peat and sapropel, so bioenergy. So the best sapropel use would be gas machines or equipment like of methane tank where up to 1,500 tons of organic matters like manure and different other byproducts are used, and daily delivery or feed to such a methane tank contains 100 tons from poultry manure and plant substrate. We worked on physical technologies on such an environment for stratification of the substance inside of biomass. So it was provided. So the pilot project took place in Potsdam University. We delivered our processed products, preparations on the basis of peat and sapropel mix, and we noticed that intensity of methane intensifying bacteria increased for 15 to 20% of additional gas supply. So biomass or organic or plant mass is becoming a deficit because pricing for such resource and raw material is increasing every year, and anthropogenic circumstances limit production of human non-involved original resources. Hence, different alternative sources of energy resources are studied and replaced by biomass, or biomass is replaced already by byproducts of peat and sapropel processing, with final energy tariff being less. Also, representatives of investors will be presented today. So they are saying that yes, peat and sapropel is used, but I have slight calculation. If we for methane tanks, 10 to 12 tons of plant or vegetation source is used. If we add at least 1 ton of peat and sapropel mix, up to 2,000 of tons will be saved. And this means thousands of tons of different or replaced matter would be really a feasible idea for Germany itself or for any other country. Animal breeding and poultry breeding is also involved, and different machinery is also drafted and designed for these industries, but actual equipment due to multifunctional effect by plant or vegetable or plant source or biomass is really already proved. So these biological additives or supplements are also produced. For instance, feed supplement included sapropel. Of course, sapropel has some limitations itself, whereas speaking on quantities, sorbent feed supplement dealing with metatoxin combating by using quantities or volume of sorbent feed supplements and Sapropel is added, we reach huge amounts of Sapropel to be commercialized. Of course, proportion of peat and Sapropel would be different and would be really attractive for potential investors. At the bottom of the slide, you see application of granulated fertilizers. There is another quite interesting technology, which is encapsulation. And Mr. Rubik mentions that if national economy is poor, every real farmer is counting and calculating what the yield or what the profit of 1 hectare would be, depending on crops, on culture, or any other type of use of land is applied. And extraction of Sapropel or Sapropel additives would mean 0.1% if encapsulation technology is applied. So later on, I would like to share with you that Sapropel should be used as raw natural resource without almost no additives being added, such as peat or any other substance. So we have received the first pilot specimen for application of Sapropel. Tens of thousands of tons of Sapropel, like calcium carbonate and these residues of mineral fertilizer production exist in many different countries, Lithuania, including Lithuania, and people are interested in Lithuania as regards these powdered residues of fertilizer production, which could be used for extracts, allowing residues from fertilizer processing plants using mineral fertilizer. And the first project was presented in Africa by our institute. This is African Union, having expressed and showed quite an interest in products based on residues of mineral fertilizer plants in Jordan, in other African countries, and we are not processing massive spaces and areas of natural resource, but we allow feasible application of residues or surplus raw material from mineral fertilizer plants to be used for another fertilizers to be produced. In cooperation with St. Petersburg Institute, we have several projects ongoing for tens of thousands tons of Sapropel being extracted, used by thermal and chemical processes to be applied to Sapropel. But this project involved application of natural reacting agents, form acids, amino acids, and products that may be intensively applied in different spheres. Briefly, what our innovative technologies are and why we are discussing combination of peat and Sapropel. Professor Bambalo mentioned really good things. Sapropel is quite exciting matter, but Sapropel types are quite different and various. And challenges of producers which are not disclosed very often, stability of the preparations made on the basis of Sapropel and peat production. Please pay attention to the graph in the left bottom corner. So, curve presented by process applied to Sapropel and peat mix and stability of the substance. having processed such production or product like peat with accompanying products and having applied extraction by physical processes with concentrated preparation of humides and fulvic acids with homogenizing these substances with natural sapropel, which is really carefully selected as the first challenge we met on the market consists of heavy radionuclide content in sapropel. And by selecting really good sapropel layer as natural resource, it affects the quality of final products that are different concentrates of humides and fulvic acid. Having selected and varied the processes for processing and extracting these active ingredients may lead to the fact that logistics transportation costs for such active ingredients would be much more cheaper.
Will you please find another transparency below? Now, higher. Okay, then I will have to just describe it verbally. We presented that work in the Ukraine, and we think that it is a collaborative effort by the Belarusian partners, institute named after Sokolovsky, the Humboldt University in Germany, and this work on reagentless processing of sapropel was nominated for the International TAN Award, and we received assessment of our technology, taking into account prospects of its application, and the money for that in the amount of 620 million of euros. But all technologies are ineffective without implementation practices. That is why we carried out vast and overwhelming tests in various climatic zones. Starting with 2005, we have been performing these tests, and we are positioning ourselves as producers of ecologically clean, biologically active preparation, and we tried our product on mostly technical cultures, and if sugar beet is processed with our product, we achieve increase in cropping production by 30%. And when we delivered our presentation at the conference, our partners were surprised by the fact that even along with such tremendous cropping capacity, we increased the content of sugars and the biomass. Secondly, we understood that this is our niche, and with the help of our Latvian colleagues and tremendous assistance by the European Parliament deputy. We managed to popularize our product, and we tested it in Germany on the production of biological potatoes. We used it as a concentrate of 0.203 liters per hectare. And here we are talking about a complex preparation which we dubbed as micro-fertilizer. So, if you use it 0.2 to 0.3 liters per hectare over different climatic zones, we have received growth in cropping capacity from Africa to Europe. As far as potatoes is concerned, the amount of starch, the size, everything was improved. Now you may look at the transparency demonstrating our test in Kazakhstan on the basis of the agricultural university. Dr. Kazhakhmetov supervised the testing. This is a testing field where various countries test their technologies, and I would like to remind you that we are talking about organic farming, and next to us, Argentinian colleagues were testing their products. You see maize here, and you can see the advantages of our technology. And here we are talking about ecologically clean technologies. We managed to demonstrate that this preparation can be used without any mineral fertilizers. But truth be told, we also used magnetic processing of seeds. We practiced systemic approach, and we have to propose very simple and clear-cut technologies to farmers. So we proposed magnetic processing, where seeds are magnetized, which results in increased biological activity. That is, the speed of germination and cropping capacity. Everything is increased. And then we introduce our organic products. So you may not believe we achieve such an effect of a 30% increase in yield using only 0.2 or 0.3 liters per hectare. But we are practicing a complex approach. We activate the work of the soil biota. This is an agrophysical approach. We contribute to the biogenesis, and it is extremely important to make sure that your preparations improve the soil. They contribute to biota's activity, and the soil being oversaturated with mineral fertilizers, it can still purify itself. Another test. This is the testing on sunflower in the Ukraine. You may familiarize yourself with the results of this work because we have all testing protocols. Another example, since we live in Europe, one of the key one of the key cultures is grapes, and in the vineyard of Massandra we also carried out our experiment where we were supposed to demonstrate our preparations capacity to relieve grapes from mite invasion. And we have to always proceed from the fact that we need to get our prospective customers interested. And wine producers in Europe really got interested in our technology, since it may result in the increase of the content of sugars in the wine. Unfortunately, I am limited in time, but I would like to refer to Mr. Rubix here. Unfortunately, due to visa complications, Dr. Yoon was unable to come, but together with him, together with the All-Chinese Institute for Soils, we carried out our testing, and they, by the way, are the largest producers of humic coal. They realized that application of such preparations results in degraded quality of the soil if you use humic preparations on the basis of coal. And so they got extremely interested in our Sapropel preparation, which can oust mineral fertilizers with organic resources. I will also like to show you an example on Jordan, where fantastic results were shown on lentils, on grain. So we have managed to demonstrate that our preparation results in stable cropping capacity increase in every climatic zone. And I would like to end in Latvian. Thank you for your attention. Now we got to know how Sapropel is born, what results it may achieve. And now let's listen to those who know where to get money for the industry. And so I'm giving the floor to head of the Swiss consulting finance firm, financial advisor of European Agrophysical Institute, Mr. Ives Voimlin. You have 5 minutes, but you can use more time since the issue is very important. We are lagging behind time, so please, I do not want to resign to European parliamentary practice.
I'm not speaking Latvian nor Russian, and only English, so please, my apologies. I'm from Switzerland, as he mentioned. I'm not a professional at all in any agricultural matters, and a few months ago I didn't even know what Sapropel was. But my business is to do some research on specific items, so we did research on Sapropel and even on a little bit of Latvia. And as you know, 5% of your gross domestic product is based on agriculture, 25% on industry, and 70% on services. So when you look at the statistics where Latvia takes its income from, it comes in agriculture from grain, rapeseed, potatoes, vegetables, pork, milk, eggs, and fish. But I haven't seen any Sapropel yet in the gross product balance. So I think there is probably some increase to make in terms of communication. There were a lot of experts present this morning, and there are several experts in this room who can tell you about the benefits of using Sapropel in agriculture matters. But I think there are also some other matters that are very important in this very challenging world where climate is a big issue, and according to the research that we have made, there are huge needs of biological organic fertilizers in this world, especially in countries like China, where they have taken measures to reduce the chemical fertilizers, and there is a huge need for organic fertilizers. So I think really that you have a huge opportunity to launch a business made of Sapropel in various countries that are producing Sapropel. I don't see only business opportunities in the agriculture, but also in the health or beauty industry. Sapropel has been proven as very efficient in some beauty products due to the minerals that are present in the product. I was several times in Jordan at the Dead Sea. We have some persons from Jordan in the assistance, and Jordan is selling its minerals from the Dead Sea for beauty products, spa, and I think that Sapropel could also be used in the beauty industry, and also probably one spa industry like thalassotherapy in France could be using Sapropel based products. So, being from a country where we know a little bit about finances, I think that the challenge of this conference is, first of all, to have the Sapropel product to be known and to be used, to get a lot of references for this product, and I think it will most certainly attract some investment. And the most important thing is to unify your efforts, and this, I think, is a good example to organize this conference, because persons from many countries are present, and I think that the trend should be to create a new Sapropel based industry. So I don't want to speak longer. We have already taken some time off the programmed timing. So thank you very much for your assistance, but I'm still here later if you have some questions. But I think you should continue your efforts. You have a fantastic product, and you can really make a business out of it, and most probably raise a lot of financing to do it. But thank you, and continue your efforts, because you are on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this brief report. So I face a challenge, because we have the next presentation, the usage of Sapropel in the Balkans. So I hope that unfortunately Željko Vidaković will not report and present his presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aleksandar Blečić, and I'm going to speak in the name of my colleague, Mr. Željko Vidaković. We're going to speak about the potential of use of Sapropel-based products of Latpower, Latvian company that is producing products. It's going to be a presentation of that company later on, so I will not speak more detailedly. about the products. So content of my presentation will be, I'll say something briefly about organic agriculture in Montenegro, something briefly about Montenegro, about Ecoplant, a company from Montenegro that recognized potential of Sapropel and is going to actively participate in the promotion of Sapropel-based products in Montenegro. As we all know, something briefly about European Union organic agriculture. Well, it's constantly growing, especially in the last 2 decades. And why is it growing? Because demand is increasing very, very rapidly in the recent period of time. And government support for organic production is becoming stronger and stronger. As you probably know, approximately 8.2 million hectares of organic farmland exists in the European Union, and that is 25% of total world's area under organic production. And the share per member state of European Union was 4.7%, and this is important to mention because goal of Montenegro is to become a member of the European Union in a soon period of time. So Montenegro is, as you can see here, one very small country in Europe. You can see on the upper picture where is it located. So it's southeastern Europe, it's less than 14,000 square kilometers and only 620,000 citizens. It's a member of World Trade Organizations, it's a candidate for European Union, and it's one step away from NATO, and its currency is euro. Montenegro is small, as you can see here, but on the picture down you can see that it is on the heart of Western Balkan, and later on I will explain why that may be important. So in our national action plan from our government for organic agriculture, it's predicting the one very positive impact of organic culture in Montenegro. Because at the moment in Montenegro and in entire Balkans there is a negative trend of depopulation, and people are abandoning the rural areas and going to live in the cities. And that is decreasing, has a negative effect on the agriculture in total. So our government considers that organic agriculture, promotion of organic agriculture can increase employment in and outside of farms through the processing industry or through increasing the consumption on the domestic market, to the tourism sector, and it can also help improving the exporting. When I speak about tourism, I must say it's a priority number 1 of our country, and organic agriculture can be very significant here because we are tending to become an elite tourism destination, and elite tourists are requiring high quality products and organic, authentic Montenegrin products. So if organic agriculture supports development of tourism, 2 of them together can increase jobs and lead to the increase of incomes in rural areas, which is the mission of our government. I'm mentioning this because all of this comes together with the story of Sapropel that I will describe later on. Current situation in organic agriculture in Montenegro, we have one governmental body for control and certification. And if you look at the table on the right, you can see how this trend of organic agriculture is increasing in the last 6 years. In 2007, it was literally insignificant 13. In 2012, it was 150 registered producers. It's still a small number, but trend is what is important. Also, in the recent period of time, there is a national association of organic producers called Organic Montenegro, and they are very active in the late period of time. In TV shows, they're making, in newspapers, they're making like markets for organic products, conferences, and so on and so on. When I speak about agricultural land in Montenegro, it's 516,000 hectares. It's like 0.83 per hectares per capita. It sounds a lot, but as it's a small country, it's not a big land we're talking about. Only 0.6% is under agricultural land, which gives a huge space for improvement, where we think it can, where we see the potential for Sapropel-based products in increasing this organic farming land. And 3,000 hectares is used for organic agricultural land, plus 140,000 hectares for the collection of healing herbs and forest fruits. Ecoplant, the company of Mr. Vidakovic, is I can say the company that is promoting this organic trends in Montenegro, and they were introduced with Sapropel only 1 month ago, and according to the information that they have now, they found that there is a huge potential of Sapropel products. At the moment, this Ecoplant company is dealing with the production of fruit trees, of fruits, of flowers, and ornamental trees, and it's a leading producer of ornamental plants in Montenegro and the region. And it has more than 500,000 nurseries on 25 hectares, and it has half of the hectare of greenhouses. On some photos, I'll just briefly show to you how the property of Ecoplant looks like, just for you, so you can know what kind of company we're talking about. It's producing Mediterranean fruits and Mediterranean plants. I'll skip the images very fast due to the lack of time. So these are Mediterranean ornamental plants. They also have continental ornamental plants, continental fruits, and on these photos you can see what is the company about. Okay, I'm skipping them. Also, company is dealing with landscaping. Here you can see some of their projects. Company considers that Sapropel-based products can have a very significant role in horticulture. This company had really big landscaping projects in Montenegro, like United States Embassy, like Parliament building, one of the most important hotels. I was speaking how tourism is important for us. So splendid hotel, and government of Montenegro, and etc. I will not speak more about it. They also have experimental production center in the north of Montenegro of approximately 12 hectares. It has 25 species of fruits with more than 300 varieties, and the plan of Ecoplant is to use Sapropel in the experiments in this ecological organic experimental centers in order to prove the benefits of it. So here are some more information about the company. Due to the lack of time, I'll skip them, and I'm going to speak about the Ecoplant and Sapropel. As company, Ecoplant is performing experiments. On 18th of November, we started with experiments in order to prove the benefits of Sapropel. Experiments are related to the cuttings of Viburnum lucidum and Phrasen photinia, or called red robine, and germination tests of Lithium barbarum, or called wolfberries, and with germination test for Fragaria vesca, or widely known as wild strawberries. Briefly, how experiments are posted. These cuttings have been sent in Sapro Agro with the addition of perlit. The company posted around 100 cuttings that are going to be irritated each 15 days with the dilution of Sapro elixir. Those are these products of this Latvian company, Latpower, that is going to be presented later on. And the aim is to monitor the process of the rooting and development of the root system of these cuttings, and everything, of course, will be compared with the control, which are the same plants. We didn't have any effect with any touch with Sapro Agro and Sapro Elixir. Those are those Sapropel-based products, and of course, both of them are the same conditions of the temperature and the humidity. Speaking about germination tests with Lithium barbarum and with Fragaria vesca, they were diluted in the solution of this Sapro elixir for 12 hours, and after that they were sown into the Sapro Agro. Sowing was carried out on the 19th of November, and unfortunately we don't have the results yet to show them, but the plan is to follow the percentage of seed germination and the growth and development of the seedlings. Beside these experiments, we also posted the experiments with ornamental plants, with young just transplanted plants that were held in other substrates, and plan is to determine the effect of Sapropel-based products on plants that were planted in other substrates. Following plants that were mentioned here are used in the experiments. 100 plants, and each 15 days they will be irrigated with Sapropel elixir 2 times a month. And the plan is to follow the growth and development of all plants, and also to pay attention to the immune system of the plants, their resistance to the disease and pesticides. So what is our vision of Sapropel products in the Balkans? If we take into account the soil structure that we have and temperature variations, which during the summer are always more than 40 degrees, which is drastically increasing the irrigation needs. And irrigation systems are not so present in Montenegro. Only 5%, it's estimated, there is not exact data, but less than 5% are used the irrigation systems. So we can say that 95% are depending on the rain and on the natural climate, or maybe in this case on Sapropel. And also if we take into account the strategic goals of government, where they have 2 priorities, first one is tourism and second one is organic agriculture, we have a vision that Sapropel can have a very significant role in Montenegro and Balkans region. In conventional agriculture, because of the lack of irrigation solutions, and because of these high temperatures. I don't have to mention now why, because of the organic agriculture, because all people are speaking about the benefits of Sapropel organic agriculture. And one very important thing, we think that in horticulture there is a huge potential for Sapropel products. Why? Because it's very unrecommended to use manure, for example, in horticulture because of many reasons, and one of them is smell. Also mineral fertilizers, which are, I can say, have a bad effect on the quality of the soil. And that's why Sapropel can have a can achieve fast results that look good and that are completely ecologically friendly. And so our vision is that Sapropel should be a necessary component in agricultural activities that I mentioned, and also in exterior and interior maintenance. So at the end, as I said, Montenegro is small, but relations of all the countries from ex-Yugoslavia are still very, very tight. And within 23 years of experience of EcoPlant, they have very strong relations from companies from all these regions. And if we take this all as a whole, it can be one very, very interesting market for introducement of Sapropel based products, and it's very typical that success in one of these countries very easily leak into the others, or simply said, success in one country usually means success in all of these countries that are stated here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
We have 2 variants. We need to finish at 12:30 to go to lunch. So we either need to make our lunch interval shorter or to shorten our discussion. So I would vote for shorter lunchtime. After all, we have come here not to eat, but to work. So the floor is given to Sokolov Gennady Alexeyevich, candidate of agricultural sciences, associate professor, head of the laboratory at the Agricultural Institute of the Academy of Sciences of Belarus. Dear colleagues, first and foremost, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address this most respectful audience, which consists of fellow thinkers. We all acknowledge that Sapropel is a unique product with unique agrophysical chemical properties, and the institute I represent has been dealing with Sapropel for about 70 years. if we look at the period during which Sapropel is formed, that is 5 to 10,000 years, the period of 70 years is just a mere trifle. And yet, the 70 years we have been studying Sapropel is a meaningful journey we have made to study the properties of this substance. And I think that in the light of the fact that we are facing now desertification, salination of soils, social discontent and turmoil, it is only but natural that we have started talking about and that we have turned to Sapropel in these times of turmoil. We are living in the time of economic assessments, and the ecological aspects are secondary, unfortunately. But getting back to the topic of our presentation, I would like to share with you our modest experience with regard to research and efficiency and effectiveness of Sapropel in the humidic zone, where there is from 630 to 700 millimeters of precipitation a year. We carried out tests in the United Arab Emirates, the Kingdom of Bahrain, Egypt, and speaking about the usage of Sapropel for the needs of agriculture. In Belarusian circumstances, we have generalized, we have summed up several studies and come up with a short table characterizing the Sapropel, all its types, organic Sapropel, silicose Sapropel, and mixed Sapropel. We have also used several types of most widely used peat and cow manure. You may want to pay attention that the range of dosage we have used is quite high, from taking into account the humidity. And as a result of this work, you may see what is highlighted in red, our best results for feed units with regard to silicious Sapropel, which demonstrated best results, and then mixed types where productivity reached 53 to 50, which is almost the same level than the one achieved making use of cow manure, but we had to use much less substance, and the cost effectiveness is also very high. It is a local fertilizer, and in order to cover the expenses, to cover the costs, you need to use it quite intensively. 1 ton of Sapropel amounts to, can be comparable with 0.6 tons of good quality manure. 40 tons per hectare, 80 tons per hectare would secure positive economic effect when it comes to effectiveness. The humus balance is a very important index, and we have to say that in the last few years the structure of agricultural fields has changed in favor of raps and maize, and the share of long-term multi-annual grass has diminished, and hence the humus balance in the soil has diminished as well. And the processes taking place in the soil are very complicated, and we don't have enough knowledge to recreate them. And this table shows you what effect can be achieved using Sapropel once every 5 years, and we can secure positive balance of humus and preserve fertility of the soil. Manure would show similar results, and only pure mineral fertilizers will have negative results. And the latest research has indicated the problem with humus in Belarus. 71 agricultural region in Belarus suffer deterioration of soil when it comes to the balance of humus. Mr. Rubiks may remember that Belarus used to be among leaders managing to sustain the positive humus balance in the soil. We have to take care of the soil health, as one of the African leaders would say. I think his name was Cecil. He used to say that we do not inherit soil from our ancestors. We just take it as a loan from our descendants. So our task is to return it to our descendants in the condition no worse than the one we got it from our ancestors. And I would like to illustrate the results of tests in a relatively interesting zone where the photosynthetic activity is very high, salinity is high, the temperature regime upon controlled water regime is also very beneficial. This is a wonderful testing field to test various products, including those containing Sapropel. In the 80s and 90s, we used to carry out a battery of such tests together with the representatives of United Arab Emirates administration. We chose several types of soil. We would process them with our products, and that is how the soil, very sandy and unsolid soil, looks. And that was our first experience as that of researchers, and we really didn't know what awaited us. After introduction of Sapropel and other materials which would be introduced into the soil, into the arable layer. That is how the soil, by the way, looked like. So you see how we introduced our preparation for technical cultures. Here you see already the second maize crop and you see that the state of the plants is very different depending on different fertilizing materials previously introduced. And summing up the experience of those years, I would like to say that in all experiments we choose variants for comparison. We compare different technologies, and the best of local compost was taken as the bottom line for our further control. Have a look at pure peat, at Sapropel, pure Sapropel, combination of peat and Sapropel. So all of them fared worse against compost. And only creation of a more complicated, more sophisticated product resulted in better cropping capacity. Parallelly, we carried out our tests in mango trees, nurseries. You can see different physiological state of the plants depending on whether Sapropel was introduced or not. Another battery of tests was carried out together with the Ministry for Agriculture of Egypt and a number of respective institutes, research institutes, and the Japanese Chiba University. In that case, we paid more attention to the state of the soil and different soil regimes, and we monitored the state of the soil upon introduction of different substances. We monitored different parameters, taking measurements per hour. Here you see results making use only peat moss. This is the best result offered by our Egyptian colleagues. Here you see a pellet, 50 centimeter pellet, and the state of the plants is not very convincing. Here you see a much better result in plants processed with Egyptian compost and the ameliorant of complex action was used. The quality characteristics of the product when it comes to the content of ascorbic acid, sugars, etc., etc., and as a result, the side of the onion bulbs was compared. You can see what peat gives the crop, what local compost gives, and what results are associated with more complicated compounds of ours. This is the initial sandy soil, which didn't used to be cultivated before. So what gives introduction of mineral fertilizers adopted in accordance with the reglement for that zone? You see the wheat crop after the first introduction of mineral fertilizers. And here you see the result in wheat whose soil was processed with organic materials. And since it was a large-scale experiment, all pictures, all publications were to be endorsed on a collaborative basis, and all parties took their measurements. That is how the young seedlings looked. Here you see the development of the root system, and these materials we are talking about create most beneficial conditions in the soil to enable the plant to realize its full potential. Here you see cropping potential, yield, control, compost, and Millerand. We used 50% of irrigation norm and 100% of irrigation norm. And in the first year, we got 77 centers of wheat, which is comparable to the yields received in the Nile Delta. And you see that even in 50% of irrigation norm, you could achieve practically the same amount of wheat as in 100 irrigation norm. And it is a very serious positive effect. These are tests with cabbage. I'm not going to dwell on them in detail, but I'm not going to discuss the results, but I would like to draw your attention to the fact that if you optimize nutritious regime, the size of leaves were comparable to those measured in the experiments, but the cropping capacity was extremely higher. And with the 50% irrigation norm, we achieved the 105 times larger yield in cabbage than in 100 irrigation norms. So here you see the picture illustrating the result 5 years after processing of the soil with a one-time introduction of organic fertilizers. I'm talking here of the Egyptian compost. You see the structure of the soil which has improved. You see the elements of water holding formed after the introduction of the fertilizer. This is the soil after the introduction of materials containing sapropel. There is some difference to be observed. Just visually, this is a picture offered by the Ministry of Agriculture.
So you can see the elements of structure formation in sandy soil and elements and technologies we're introducing. The last fact that the most valuable for anaerobic layer is a wish to have the most humidity in arable layer and germination or nutrients to the plants in some extreme conditions for agricultural land. And if soil is supplemented with peat, moss, this humidity resistance or humidity keeping level will be increased, and that allows increasing up to 6 times or up to 50% water retention ability. Different cases of cutting of leaves, graftage, nursery, cluster technology elements applied, and different covering technologies, Kingdom of Bahrain, and advantage of Saturn technology on the basis of Sapropel-based materials, and so on. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much to Mr. Sokolov. And before I would like to introduce the next speaker, I have an announcement. So we have 2 lecturers before the lunch, 10 minutes each. And our lunch break will start at 12:30. Yanis Garanch will transfer his presentation after the lunch break. So, and the floor would be given to our Lithuanian colleagues, Evgeny Bakshine, MD, senior scientific employee of Vokesk branch of Agrarian and Forestry Sciences from Lithuania. So 10 minutes for each speaker.
Добрый день.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, in Lithuania, Sapropel is studied for many years, but our report would include only brief introduction of research carried out in this year, ordered by the Ministry of Agriculture of Lithuania. And we were very glad that they ordered such research because the ministry had to prove how good fertilizer Sapropel actually is. Persons dealing with Sapropel, especially with organic Sapropel, knows that hugest problem and challenge is dehydration of Sapropel, and for Sapropel not to be so humid, it is mixed with peat moss. So here agrochemical characteristic of Sapropel and peat is presented on the slide. There is total nitrogen more than in manure, classical manure. Therefore, we can recommend Sapropel as nitrogen-containing fertilizer for organic farms. We have researched and studied the following groups, like control without any fertilizer, recommended fertilizer, recommended in Lithuania for potatoes. Third group was processed with trichodermine, and the fourth was 45 tons per hectare combination or solution of Sapropel and peat. Trichodermine is microseed produced like probiotics on the basis of Sapropel as well, and this is quite prospective and potential material or resource for fertilizing. So Sapropel and peat mix was placed under potatoes, and we received the results on the slide.
Не умею пользоваться, чего-то не показывает. Хорошо.
So you can see that yield of potato was twice as large than in control group, and interesting fact was observed that in the group of trichodermine processed potatoes, constituent of which is Sapropel as well, the yield was larger, as well as starch content increased in trichodermine group and Sapropel group. And yields of starch in these two groups exceeded 200%. Speaking on agrochemical properties of fertilized soil, It was really hard to establish that after only 1 year. Processing was quite hard, but in comparison and analysis with contrastive comparison with a coal-based preparations, results were progressive. A balance of nitrogen was calculated, and positive balance of nitrogen by introducing only mineral fertilizers and Sapropel are different. So, mineral fertilizer based originated nitrogen content would reach underground water, whereas nitrogen delivered by Sapropel will be assimilated and absorbed by plants themselves. There are, of course, some disadvantages. For instance, may beetles damaged potatoes processed by Sapropel, perhaps because there was a large number of tubers, or perhaps beetles know which potatoes are more tasteful. The fact that positive has a huge positive effect on agrochemical properties of soil is a well-known fact, presented and demonstrated by several speakers before me. However, I would like to present another picture taken by me. So, Sapropel has not disintegrated after 18 years of implementation or application. This is a field where Sapropel has been researched and studied since 1994. An effect of Sapropel is illustrated on a 6-field crop rotation scheme. So in 2008, when the culture or cultivation was processed by Sapropel, and it is showed on this field. Thank you very much for your attention. So it seems that women are more disciplined, like compared to men. It seems so. And now I will give the floor to a colleague of Ms. Eugenia Bakshina, and that would be Mr. Petras Stepanavicius, Director of Planning Office MI Barsas, Development of Technologies for Sapropel Processing, and he will present in scientific research in the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests of the conference, our company is dealing with developing technologies for processing Sapropel, but today I would like to propagate or popularize on European Commission, so I'll try do my best for being brief and short. Nature has accumulated and gifted richness to us. Sapropel, namely, this is excellent gift consisting of billions of tons. When I told about Sapropel at one big office of quite a chief or boss, but and he asked whether 90% of Sapropel consists of water. Yes, I answered. He said, oh, that's not interesting, because only water is included in Sapropel, and this is only problem. But let's ask a question to ourselves. If Sapropel would be non-challenging and non-problematic and complex material, would it be kept up to our days? It would be carried and delivered to the fields by our ancestors and would be eaten in form of grain or potato. So the Mother Nature, as if had forecasted that her child, humanity, humankind, would really intensively use the soil and would disintegrate it or pour it. Therefore, the nature has hidden the black healing agent for black soil, for black deep lakes. and brain was provided to a human. And perhaps it's that black or grey day when we have to think how our planet could be saved. And I'm sure that people are gathered together here today have quite intense thinking and cerebral activity. But we could promote people and persons who are decision makers in strategic directions of sciences and economics in general. We must remember that these are busy persons, and we must help them by reminding, by providing ready reports and decisions, which is one of our main targets at the present time, and we have to follow that. Sapropel will stay in lakes without our assistance. So we started with the European Commission as regards application of Sapropel fertilizer in organic farming. In this year, Ministry of Agriculture provided final documents to the European Commission for reviewing the question of including Sapropel into the list Annex 1 for application of Sapropel as organic fertilizer. Member states of the European Union were provided such power and delegation according to the treaty. So, provision or submission of the final document is followed by the discussions. Expert group was established in 2012 and made the final report. And I would like to emphasize that it was the final report that application of Sapropel and similar sediments in fresh waters are compatible with criteria, targets of organic farming. And these materials should be included in appropriate schemes and annexes or lists of the European Union. Perhaps I'll skip several other decisions made by the expert group, but experts considered if the following conditions were observed, the Sapropel could be included in Regulation 834/2007, and the annexes included to that regulation. So documents were submitted in 2009. Final report of the expert group was received in 2012, and our colleague from Poland announced the good news that European Parliament included one word. But some time will pass when Sapropel could be used easily and freely in organic farming. Simultaneously, the European Commission, in report provided in 2012 in chapter named Implementation of Topical Strategy and Activity Made for Protection of Soil, mentions that the European community and entire world faced a serious problem, degradation of soil. And the report mentioned that under effects and influence of desertation and degradation of soil, more than 1.5 billion people are subject in more than 110 countries due to degradation of soil in the result of soil erosion. Up to 50,000 square kilometers of fruitful land, fertile soil is lost every year. And these are facts and figures making us to think. Also, heads of parliaments, heads of countries, managers of international organizations, representatives of the science and business have to think how we find a correct solution For fighting degradation of soil, we can produce these healing agents from sapropel. But for instance, sapropel cannot be extracted in Sahara Desert, in Tel Aviv, or in Brussels. Sapropel is located and placed in our countries, in Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Russia, Poland, Sweden and neighboring countries, bit by bit. While the big bosses in Brussels, in Cairo, in Tel Aviv, etc., will think what should be done, we and you and me must think how we can process and deliver sapropel and how we can commercialize it. Therefore, entire scientific potential should be united and joined, and our conclusions should help our representatives in the European Union and countries which will be potential consumers of sapropel-based products. Therefore, a matter or issue of sapropel should be prioritized. According to the practice or experience gained in Lithuania, after provision and submission of materials at scientific conference as regards sapropel, Chancellor of Lithuania ordered establishment of ad hoc group for researching sapropel. Work of that commercialized and promoted establishment of joint ventures for Sapropel Venture Lithuanian Party of, according to the order by the Ministry of Agriculture, is ready to discuss potential cooperation from different stakeholders from other countries. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Stepanovich. So we have come to the end of our first session. I would like to wish you bon appetit. Unfortunately, only lecturers will be provided paid lunch. After lunch break, we'll continue at 1:15 p.m.